the soul of cities. The airplane touched down with a gentle shudder, its wings slicing through the early morning mist that hovered over Lisbon's Humberto Delgado Airport. Elena pressed her forehead to the window, trying to catch a glimpse of the city she had dreamed about for years. Rows of terracotta rooftops stretched toward the horizon, glowing faintly under the rising sun, while the wide Tagus River shimmered like a ribbon of silver. For Elena, this was more than just a vacation. It was a long-awaited adventure, a chance to immerse herself in a culture she had studied but never truly experienced. Ready to fall in love with Portugal? Her friend Noah whispered, pulling his backpack from the overhead compartment. He had travelled widely, often with little more than a camera and a notebook, but Elena noticed the way his eyes sparkled. Even he seemed captivated by the promise of Lisbon. Their group was small. Elena, a history teacher from London, Noah, a freelance travel writer, and Sophia, a Brazilian architect with a fascination for European cityscapes. They had met in an online travel forum a year earlier, bonding over a shared passion for meaningful tourism seeking, not just photographs but authentic experiences. As they stepped into the arrivals hall, Sophia unfolded a paper map with deliberate care. "First stop," she said with a grin, "the Alfama district. If you want to understand Lisbon, you start where its soul still sings." A tram carried them uphill through winding streets that seemed too narrow for vehicles, brushing past walls painted in sun-faded yellows and blues. The scent of roasted chestnuts drifted through the air, mingling with the distant strains of fado music spilling from hidden taverns. Every corner revealed a mural or a clothesline strung between balconies, the laundry fluttering like flags of daily life. Elena could hardly take it all in. "It feels timeless," she murmured. "It is," Sophia replied. "Lisbon has burned, rebuilt, endured earthquakes, and yet here it stands layer upon layer of history." At a small cafe, they paused for breakfast. The waiter brought strong espresso and pastel de nata, the flaky custard tarts that Portugal was famous for. Elena took one bite and closed her eyes. It was as if the sweetness carried with it centuries of tradition, the blending of Moorish, European, and maritime influences that defined Lisbon's cuisine. Noah leaned across the table, lowering his voice. "So tell me, Elena, why Lisbon? You could have chosen Paris or Rome." She hesitated, then smiled. "Because Lisbon isn't just a city. It's a story. Its explorers setting sail into the unknown. Its poets and singers mourning lost loves. Its resilience after disaster. I wanted to see how all of that lives on today." Later, they climbed to the Miradouro da Graça, one of Lisbon's many scenic viewpoints. From there, the city stretched before them like a painting. Red rooftops cascading toward the river, the suspension bridge arching across the water, and the castle crowning the hilltop. Tourists snapped photos, but Elena found herself simply standing still, breathing it all in. Suddenly, an elderly man with a guitar approached them. Without a word, he began to play a haunting melody, his voice rough yet soulful. The lyrics, though in Portuguese, carried an unmistakable ache, a longing that transcended language. "That," Sophia whispered, "is Fado. It's the heart of Lisbon." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about work, deadlines, or responsibilities. She was simply present, connected to a place through sound, taste, and atmosphere. As dusk approached, the group descended into the labyrinth of Alfama. They found themselves at a small, family-run restaurant, where candlelight flickered against stone walls. A woman with a powerful voice sang fado while diners sipped wine and ate grilled sardines. The performance wasn't staged for tourists. It was raw, emotional, almost confessional. When the singer finished, silence lingered before applause filled the room. Elena exchanged a glance with Noah and Sophia. In that instant, they all knew this trip was already becoming something more than a checklist of sights. On their way back to the guest house, Noah spoke softly. Tomorrow we could visit Belém, see where the great explorers set sail. Or maybe Sintra, with its palaces in the hills. But whatever we choose, let's not rush. The beauty of travel isn't in how many places you see, it's in how deeply you experience them. Elena nodded. Then let's promise each other something. No rushing, no superficial snapshots. We'll dive into each place, really live it. They sealed the promise with smiles. Lisbon's streets glowed in the lamplight, as if the city itself approved. For Elena, this was not merely the beginning of a journey through Portugal. It was the beginning of something greater, a rediscovery of how travel could transform not just one's perspective, but one's very sense of being. The morning train whisked them out of Lisbon and into the lush hills of Sintra, a town whispered about like a fairy tale. As the train curved along the tracks, Elena pressed her face to the glass, watching the scenery shift. The wide river gave way to forests, mist clinging to the branches like veils. In the distance, she saw the silhouette of a castle perched improbably on a mountaintop, as if guarding secrets centuries old. Sintra, Sophia explained, her voice almost reverent, is not just a town. It's a dreamscape. Royals, poets, and artists came here for inspiration. And you'll see why soon. When they arrived, the cobbled streets seemed alive with color. Shops sold hand-painted tiles, local cheese, and court crafts. The air carried the fragrance of Travesseira's almond-filled pastries unique to the region. Yet above the charming chaos loomed something grander. The palaces. They boarded a small bus that wound up the mountain road. At every turn, new vistas opened dense green forests, hidden convents and stone stairways disappearing into the trees. Then, suddenly the bus rounded a corner, and there it was, the Palacio de Pena. It was unlike any castle Elena had ever imagined. Turrets painted in brilliant yellows and reds soared into the sky. Domes glistened like jewels and ornate tiles shimmered in the sunlight. It looked less like a fortress and more like a palace conjured from a painter's canvas. Noah lifted his camera. It's absurd. It's whimsical. He lowered the camera without taking the shot. It's almost too surreal to capture. Inside, the palace revealed layers of history. Gothic arches, Moorish courtyards, Renaissance details. In one room, sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, scattering patterns across tiled floors. Elena touched the cool stone of the walls, imagining the kings and queens who had once walked these corridors. Yet what fascinated her most wasn't the grandeur but the philosophy behind it. Sophia explained as they explored. This palace was designed during the Romantic era. It wasn't just about power, it was about imagination. Architecture as poetry. A palace meant to evoke wonder, not just authority. They lingered at the palace terrace, where the view stretched endlessly. Forests rolling into the horizon, the ocean glimmering in the distance. Wind tugged at Elena's hair as she leaned against the balustrade. Do you ever think, she asked, that places like this remind us to dream bigger? To build not only for function, but for beauty, for the soul? Sophia smiled. Exactly. That's why tourism, when done right, isn't consumption, it's connection. We step into the dreams of those who came before us. In the afternoon, they descended into the town again and made their way to the Quinta da Galera. At first glance, it appeared to be another elegant estate with towers and gardens. But soon they discovered its hidden marvel, the initiation well. Carved deep into the earth, the stone spiral staircase descended like a tunnel into another world. Each level seemed symbolic arches carved with mysterious patterns, shadows lingering like forgotten myths. This, Noah whispered as they walked downward, feels less like tourism and more like initiation. As if the place is testing us, asking whether we're ready to understand its secrets. At the bottom, the air was cool and damp. A stone passageway led them through underground tunnels until they emerged into sunlight once more, standing amid moss-covered fountains. For Elena, the experience was unsettling yet profound. Tourism wasn't just about observing beauty. Sometimes it meant confronting mysteries that challenged one's perspective. By evening, they sat in a small Sintra tavern, dining on caldo verde soup and grilled cod. Around them, locals chatted in Portuguese and laughter spilled into the street. Noah scribbled notes in his journal, pausing only to sip red wine. Sophia looked at Elena. "What are you thinking?" Elena stirred her soup. "That travel isn't about escape. It's about awakening. Every place we've seen so far, Lisbon's fado, Sintra's palaces, it reminds me that culture is alive, breathing, waiting for us to listen." Noah closed his notebook. "And tomorrow, perhaps, Porto will tell us its story." The mention of Porto sent a thrill through Elena. She had read about the city of bridges, of wine cellars, of narrow streets tumbling down to the Douro River. Another chapter of Portugal's soul awaited. As they walked back to their guest house under the stars, the silhouette of the Pena Palace glowed faintly in the distance, illuminated like a beacon. It seemed less like a building and more like a reminder that beauty, wonder, and meaning were worth pursuing, not just in travel, but in life itself. The train crossed the border from Portugal into Spain, slicing through landscapes that seemed to transform with every mile. Rolling green hills gave way to golden plains, dotted with olive groves and ancient farmhouses. As the train approached Andalusia, the air itself seemed to shift warmer, drier, infused with the scent of citrus and something Elena couldn't quite name. Sophia leaned across the aisle, her eyes sparkling. "Seville will be different from anything we've seen. It's the heart of Andalusia, the birthplace of flamenco, a city that burns with history and rhythm." When they stepped off the train, Seville greeted them with heat and brilliance. Whitewashed buildings gleamed under the midday sun. Balconies draped with flowers spilled onto narrow streets, and horse-drawn carriages clattered along cobblestones. The cathedral's Gothic spires pierced the sky, while the Giralda Tower rose proudly, a blend of Moorish and Renaissance influences. "Seville is a story of layers," Noah said as they walked. "Romans, Moors, Christians each left a mark, and you can still feel it." Their first stop was the Real Alcazar, the royal palace. As they entered, Elena gasped. Arched doorways carved with delicate arabesques led into courtyards where fountains trickled softly. Walls glistened with azulejos, intricately painted tiles in turquoise and gold. The palace felt like a labyrinth of beauty, where every corridor revealed another hidden garden or hall. Sophia traced her fingers along the patterns. "This is Mediar architecture, Christian rulers borrowing from Islamic artistry. It's not just coexistence, it's fusion." In the gardens, orange trees perfumed the air while peacocks strutted across the lawns. Elena closed her eyes, imagining the centuries of voices that had filled these spaces. Sultans, queens, poets, soldiers. History wasn't a distant concept here. It was alive in the walls, breathing through the patterns. Later, as dusk painted the sky in shades of crimson, the group made their way to a flamenco tableau. The venue was intimate whitewashed walls, wooden chairs, the faint smell of wine and candle wax. Locals filled the room, their anticipation palpable. Elena felt her pulse quicken. The performers emerged without grandeur, just presence. A guitarist plucked the first notes, sharp and deliberate. A singer's voice followed, raw and aching, carrying centuries of sorrow and resilience. Then the dancer stepped forward, her red dress swirling like fire, her heels striking the floor with fierce precision. Elena felt the rhythm reverberate through her chest. The dance was not polished entertainment. It was emotion embodied. Pride, defiance, grief, joy. Each stomp of the dancer's foot seemed to call upon generations past. "This isn't performance," Noah whispered. "It's catharsis." Sophia's eyes glistened. "It's Dune, she explained softly. A Spanish word. It means a kind of soulful passion, a spirit that possesses the performer. Flamenco without Dune is empty. With it, its transcendence. By the time the final chord faded, the room erupted in applause. Eleanor's hands stung from clapping, but her heart felt fuller, as if she had been given a glimpse into the essence of Andalusia. Afterward, they shared tapas in a lively plaza plates of jamon iberico, olives and patatas bravas. Locals gathered in groups, laughter echoing beneath strings of lights. The air was warm, fragrant with grilled seafood. Noah raised his glass of sangria. "To tourism done right," he said. "To moments that don't just show us a place but change us." Elena tapped her glass against his. "And to friendships forged through journeys." They wandered through the Barrio Santa Cruz, Seville's old Jewish quarter, where narrow alleys twisted into hidden squares. The night was alive with the strum of guitars and the hum of voices. At one corner, a group of young Sevillanos danced in the street, improvising flamenco steps with laughter. Elena paused to watch, her heart swelling. She realized then that tourism was not about consuming spectacles. It was about bearing witness to life as it unfolded, raw and real. Before returning to their guest house, they stood before the illuminated cathedral once more. Its vast Gothic facade glowed against the night sky, and the Giralda Tower seemed to whisper across centuries. Sophia broke the silence. "Tomorrow we could head to Granada. The Alhambra waits." "Another story carved in stone." Elena smiled. "Then let's keep following the stories. Each city feels like a chapter. And I don't want the book to end." As they walked back through Seville's moonlit streets, the echoes of flamenco footsteps seemed to follow them, a rhythm not just of dance, but of life itself. The bus wound its way through the Andalusian countryside, carrying the travelers eastward from Seville to Granada. Olive groves rolled across the hills like a sea of green, and beyond them rose the jagged peaks of the Sierra Nevada, their summits dusted with snow even in spring. Elena gazed out the window, sensing that something profound awaited. "Granada," Sophia murmured, as if speaking to herself. "A city where cultures collided and intertwined Moorish, Jewish, Christian. The last stronghold of Al-Andalus." By the time they arrived, the afternoon sun bathed the city in a golden haze. Granada revealed itself slowly. Steep cobbled lanes climbing toward the Albaycin district, Whitewashed houses with wooden balconies and the distant silhouette of a fortress palace dominating the skyline. The Alhambra, Noah said softly, following Elena's gaze. It doesn't just sit above the city. It watches. It remembers. They made their way up the hill the following morning, passing through arched gates that seemed to guard not only stone walls but centuries of memory. Inside, the Alhambra unfolded like a dream made real, courtyards where fountains whispered, halls where light filtered through latticed windows, gardens perfumed with roses and cypress. In the Court of the Lions, Elena stopped, stunned. 12 marble lions supported the central fountain, water spilling gently from their mouths. The surrounding arches bore delicate inscriptions in Arabic poems praising paradise, eternity, the beauty of creation. Sophia translated softly, her fingers brushing the carvings. They built not for conquest, but for harmony. For a vision of heaven on earth. Elena traced the intricate stucco patterns with her eyes. Each line, each curve seemed endless, like a visual prayer. She whispered, "This isn't architecture. It's poetry written in stone." Noah remained silent, scribbling furiously in his journal. Finally he looked up. It's haunting, because it's not just beauty, it's loss. The Alhambra was the jewel of Muslim Spain, and yet by 1492 it was surrendered to Ferdinand and Isabella. Imagine building paradise, only to lose it forever. They walked on, entering the Hall of the Ambassadors, its dome soaring above like a night sky carved from wood. Elena closed her eyes and imagined sultans receiving envoys, the air thick with incense, negotiations shaping the destiny of kingdoms. She could almost hear the voices of the past echoing in the silence. Later, in the Generalife Gardens, they rested beside a long reflecting pool. The still water mirrored the cypress trees, creating an illusion of infinite depth. The fragrance of jasmine hung heavy in the air. Sophia sighed. Travel reminds us that cultures don't vanish, they leave traces. The Alhambra is not just Moorish or Spanish. It's human. It belongs to everyone willing to listen. Elena thought about Lisbon's fado, Sintra's palaces, Seville's flamenco. Each had spoken in a different voice, yet all carried the same message. That culture was a living dialogue, not a relic. That evening, they wandered into the Albaycin. From the Mirador de San Nicolas, they watched the Alhambra illuminated against the backdrop of the Sierra Nevada, glowing like an ember in the dark. Musicians played guitar nearby, their melodies weaving into the night. Locals and travelers alike gathered, united by awe. Elena felt something stir within her, a recognition that this journey was no longer about ticking destinations off a list. It was about transformation. She had come to Portugal and Spain as a tourist. She would leave as something else. A witness. A participant in stories larger than her own. Noah leaned against the stone wall, closing his notebook. "I've travelled to many places," he said quietly, "but rarely have I felt this. That travel isn't about movement, it's about stillness. Standing here, watching the Alhambra glow, I feel rooted." Sophia nodded. "We came as travellers, but maybe we're leaving as keepers of what we've seen. It's our responsibility to carry these stories forward." Elena didn't answer immediately. She simply watched the Alhambra, its towers and arches gleaming under the moonlight, a silent reminder of both fragility and endurance. Finally, she whispered, "Then let's promise each other one last thing. Wherever we go after this, whether near or far, we won't travel as consumers. We'll travel as listeners." The three of them stood together in silence, the music of the guitar floating on the night air. In that moment, It no longer mattered that their journey would end in a few days. What mattered was that they had learned how to see, not just places, but people, histories, and dreams. As the moon rose higher, casting silver light over Granada, Elena felt at peace. Travel had given her more than memories. It had given her perspective, humility, and wonder. And in the timeless glow of the Alhambra, she knew that this was not the end of their hidden journeys, but only the beginning.